Welcome everyone. Yeah, by the way, we will be recording this event, so later we can share it on our YouTube and reach more young water professionals. So today we are going to have our Waterside Chat event with Dr. Wim Audenaert. Thanks to him that he's joining us today as the speaker. But before we start our event, I would like to briefly introduce you YWP Canada and what type of opportunities we provide for the young water professionals in Canada. So YWP Canada is the local chapter of International Water Association's young water professional community here in Canada. And our mission is to be an inclusive, forward-thinking and supportive community for all early career Canadians working in water sector. And our ultimate goal is to create a network for young water professionals in Canada, provide opportunities for them, empower and support them, and contribute to their learning, leading, and growing. And anyone who is 35 years old or younger can join YWP Canada. Whoever working or studying in the field of water in Canada can participate in our events and activities and also work for Young Water Professionals Canada. So what IWA is promising to young water professionals what are the membership benefits of IWA? IWA is proposing professional development and also engagement exposure opportunities to YWPs. You can develop your professional network online, see who is part of the community, enter discussions and see what engagement opportunities are there, such as the emerging water leaders, local YWP chapters, or being part of the specialist groups related in your field. And also IWA has been focusing a lot on professional development through its events, articles, and interactions with its senior professionals. Many virtual and in-person events are being organized, so you can benefit from them. And so if you become an IWA member, you will have many benefits, such as having an IWA Connect profile and being in contact with water professionals around the world, participation in IWA specialist groups, and getting discounts for the IWA events and conferences, and also free access to IWA magazines and journals. So here you see the executive team of YWP Canada. So I'm the co-chair of this group and I will be hosting this event today. Thanks to our programming directors for organizing this virtual event. We also have our regional subcommittees to host regional events in different provinces of Canada. We have our communication team that carry out the communication with us and between our members. So we exist in these social media platforms, so you can just type YWP Canada and you can follow us to get informed about our events and activities. So as YWP Canada, we had the first Canadian IWA YWP conference last year in June. The second one will be held next year. So if you would like to contribute, you can just keep this in mind. We also provide mentorship programs in our different provinces. Here is an example that we have in Quebec. We are also hosting these mentoring sessions like today, the Waterside Chats. We also organize workshops and panel discussions, peer to conferences, and technical e-learning sessions. Also recently, we started our regional networking events. So if you would like to be part of YWP Canada, and if you would like to work for YWP Canada, you can just go to our website and fill the form to be a volunteer. And you can also subscribe for our newsletter and receive our newsletter every month to get informed about our upcoming events. So finally, don't miss our next event. It will be held on 13th of April. It will be related with transforming water treatment operations with digital twin technology. So you can already register for this event. So we can start our Waterside Chat with our speaker. I'm sure everyone is pretty familiar with the Zoom platform already. If you would like to ask your questions, you can just raise your hand. You can write your questions in the chat box, or just switch on your camera and ask your questions to our speaker. So that's pretty much it that I wanted to share. So yeah, let's welcome again our speaker, Wim Audenaert from Belgium. He's joining us. We will be talking about the transition from being a researcher to an entrepreneur. Wim is the CEO of the AM team company. So Wim, please take the floor. You can introduce yourself and maybe give us a bit information about your background, what you have studied, why you choose to study in water sector. What was the driving force for you to choose this sector?
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Gamze, for introducing this session, and and everybody here for having me. It's a big honor. I really love these things. You will notice I get a lot of energy from this. That's why I do it. We all have a lack of time, but if you get energy from certain activities, then you do certain activities. So I think it will be energizing for you, but also for me. I'm Wim Audenaert. I'm a Belgian, yes, and I'm a water professional. And since very recently, I'm not a young water professional anymore. So I reached the age of 35. It's sometimes confronting. So I can call myself an experienced water professional. But the young water professionals community always has been very important to me, because I helped organizing lots of YWP events in the past, lots of conferences here in the Benelux region, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, but also at the more international scale. So yeah, it's great to be here. Yeah, short history, my background. So I studied environmental engineering at Ghent University. And then also I did a PhD on later in the same area. And I was already a water professional then. Those are in short, in a nutshell, my studies. Now, next to my studies, I will come back to it. I'm also a father and a husband. I am a father of 4 kids. Since 3 weeks ago, 4 kids.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's quite a business. It's my home business. That was the first business, and it's really it's quite a thing. Eh? But we enjoy it so much. That's why we went for 4 kids, because we really also get a lot of energy from that, from the family life. Me and my wife. So yeah, and I grew up in nature. And this, I think, already triggered from a very young age my interest in understanding things of nature, and understanding things scientifically. Also experimenting with my brother. I always experimented a lot with little animals in nature from the age of 4, 5, 6. We were in nature all the time. So yeah, I think that had a huge impact on my direction. I went, and then after my studies of environmental engineering, I had to choose during the studies, I had to choose my master topic, my master thesis. And the coincidence was there was a water topic. So that was actually how I entered the water industry, and I never left it. It was my master study, my master thesis. I could have taken a completely other direction if the master thesis was different. So it was really pure coincidence. I didn't choose for water on purpose back then. So yeah, there was a question like, can you design this water or wastewater treatment plant, for this festival, a music festival? That was the topic of my master thesis. Design a wastewater treatment plant for a 3 days music festival where a little village turns into a city in terms of population equivalence for 3 days. And you typically go physical chemical, because yeah, it's so short that you don't have time to start up a biology. So I went physical chemical technology, adsorption and membranes and things like that. It went really well. So that was how I entered the water industry. And then I couldn't get enough of it. So I went for a PhD at the bioscience engineering faculty in Ghent, in the research group actually Peter founded, Peter van Rollegem. He's also here in the call. And my co-supervisor was Ingmar Nopens. Many people here as well know him, and Ingmar was a PhD student of Peter, as many water professionals. So that's a bit in short, in a nutshell, my background.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's if I miss things, just let me know.
Great to know that. Thank you very much. I'm wondering, when you are doing your PhD research, were you also teaching at the university, or you were just doing your research for academia?
Yes, indeed. I was an assistant. So for 4 years, and I taught a lot of classes. Yeah, like a practice of it was really chemical oriented, because I worked on chemical oxidation technologies. Mm-hmm. So labs, practice of chemical engineering. Mm-hmm. Lab tests, jar tests, all these kind of distillation columns, extraction, all these things. Yeah.
Great. So you have the teaching experience as well. So can you tell us, like, why you changed the direction from academia to starting up your own company? How did you decide that?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. Huh? And I thought a lot about it because it was quite impactful, this choice. Huh? Actually, I entered academia with not really with a conscious choice. To be honest, I had finished my master's and I thought what to do with my life. I have no clue. Where should I work? Should I go to the private sector? Should I be a consultant? What should I do? What can I do? I don't know. What am I good at? I don't know. I had no clue. And then suddenly they come, okay, we have a PhD position. Are you interested? And then I thought, okay, well, yeah, I don't have to choose then. I just take the position, and just imagine I can call myself doctor. Wouldn't that be something? And I just went for it without thinking too much. That's how I entered academia. And then at the end of my PhD, I thought, okay, now if I can become a doctor, why can't I become a professor? Let's stay here, but let's go all in. So I did a postdoc for 3 years, and I also spent some time at University Laval for 3 months, including that and a couple of other activities. And then, then I started thinking, now you really have to think consciously. Is this really something for you, an academic career? Is this really something for you? And that question lingered on. And then I thought, no. Actually, I strived for it for years. My PhD, 3 years of postdoc, for 7 years I strived for it, and now I'm really doubting. And then if you're doubting, the question is if it is a good choice. Huh? Okay, so I decided when I come back from Canada, I will just launch my business. I quit academia and I just start a business because I want to do that. But yeah, and then the last month of the stay in Canada, a professorship position came in the research group. I was a postdoc, and I was one of the few postdocs, and I was really well positioned to take that position. And that was very hard for me because I already decided to not go for academia, but then the position came. And then I thought, okay, let's apply. I will not get selected. Many other candidates will be there. And then I go for the business. So I still applied because I didn't want to, tell to myself I didn't do it. But still, I applied first round, second round, third round, and I was left with 2 candidates, me and another candidate. And then I really had to decide myself because I really didn't want the position. And that was a very tough choice. So then I made the decision to step out of the race and to just focus on the business. But it was very hard. The months after that, I must say, because there was no business, no position, it felt like a vacuum. Yeah, that was a bit of history.
Yeah, sounds a bit risky. But you are a very good example for us, I think, because many of us here are graduate students. We are doing our PhD, and we must also consider other options than academia after our studies. So you are a very good example to show that it's possible to start your own business, work for freelance, or there are also other options like private sector or government or non-profit organizations. So it's always nice to hear from people like you. So I'm wondering, can you give us a bit more information about AM Team? Like, what do you do? What services you provide to your clients, and what they expect from AM Team?
Yes, sure. So maybe I will start with some philosophy behind our name and our company. The name comes from the A-Team. Everybody or many people know the A-Team, this television series. They are a special force. They are a team of complementary people, very different people. And if you throw them together, they can do spectacular missions. That's the A-Team. So that's and team is also a core philosophy or a core value of our company, the team spirit. So that's where our name comes from. Of course, AM stands for advanced modeling. So we do, of course, other things than shooting. Yeah? So we do advanced modeling. It's very broad. So then what is our why? So why do we exist? What drives us as a company? Well, our mission, that's the why, is we challenge the status quo in process engineering for optimal use of resources. That's what we do. So we just question what's going on today, and we try to go to a better future. And our primary goal is to save resources. It can be the standard resources like energy, chemicals, but it can also be less standard resources, such as man hours, the amount of pilot tests you do, the amount of samples you take, the amount of analysis you have to send to a lab. So resources goes very wide here. So we use mathematical models to either reduce, replace, or complement physical trialing. So we actually, as a company, are currently 100% working on mechanistic models. So models based on physics, chemistry, and biology. So it's not yet, I'm not excluding it, but it's not yet data-driven models. And we are using these models to either accelerate R&D. So we work with a lot of technology companies. We use models to, when technologies are on the market, to help people selecting the right technology. When they have selected the right technology, we help people designing a plant, designing a reactor optimally. And when they are in operation, we help with smart operations. So we also work a lot on new models for real-time operation, which are called digital twins, whatever you call them, but actually they predict variables you want to know, but you cannot measure based on variables you can measure. So those are the primary activities of our business. We use two types of models right now, mechanistic models, computational fluid dynamics, which is the 3D simulation of flow and reactions, a very complex stuff, very visual. And then second is also more kinetic models, just kinetics and flow sheets. Yeah.
But well, modeling of wastewater treatment processes is a sub-specific sector in water sector, let's say. Many people here, they are not doing modeling or they don't know it in detail, but also like the CFD models that you mentioned is a much more specific topic. So I'm wondering, like, how did you realize that there is a gap in the market to start your own business, and how did you convince yourself to go after it? Because at the end, that's a successful company. So I'm wondering, like, what was your thoughts about that?
Yeah. Actually, when the first week of my PhD, so I did a PhD on purely kinetic modeling. I didn't do anything on CFD. I never ran a CFD simulation myself. But I was there in the research group and I saw people on these screens producing these very colorful graphs. And then I thought, wow, this is just next level thing. I can never do this, but what they are producing, this is crazy. And I immediately thought in these first weeks, this has huge commercial value, no? I mean, you just simply see what's happening inside a system. And then I start my PhD, and then, but during my postdoc time, it came back. Yeah? Okay, so what are people now doing with that in the market? And I started talking to a couple of people, and then you start realizing and discovering that there is a gap. So that actually we can extend it, not only CFD, we can extend it to modeling in general. It is not sufficiently used in the market, while the potential is enormous. So that's what that told to us. And who are us? It's me, my co-founder Usman, and my co-founder Ingmar. We thought, yeah, this is impossible, guys. I mean, models are not sufficiently in the markets, so we can do something about that.
Yeah, that's how we started. That's also my observation. There is not a lot of similar companies that can serve to utilities or other beneficiaries. So yeah, It's nice to know that. So for your position in your company, like what is like being a CEO? What type of responsibilities or opportunities that it generates for you?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the benefit of starting your own business. Huh? You can give yourself the best title from the start. So you can be CEO from day one and you have not proven anything. So that's actually a major benefit, right? You can update your LinkedIn profile and your CEO. Now the thing is, of course, you have to make it true, huh? Make it real, and that's another thing. Now, when you look at the role as a founder or a CEO in a startup, it changes dramatically throughout the years. Definitely, if your company grows fast and starts growing, the positions changes enormously. Yeah, and just to illustrate that, I can maybe share a little slide to give some background on this.
Yeah.
You just have to allow screen sharing.
Yes, that's what I'm gonna do. So it should work now for you.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a slide I've put up here just on, these are the typical roles in a startup business. Now, when you start a business, I think more or less everybody has to have these roles in the business. When you start alone as a freelance or with 2 people or with 3. So you have the CEO role, you have sales, marketing, project engineer, business development, administration, and project manager. These are typical roles. Huh? And initially in 2018, my role looked like this. So I did all of these things except little working on project. I was not really a project engineer because my colleague took care of that. And then I did a little project management initially because we were only 2 people. Yeah, okay, you have to do a lot. But I was sending invoices, I was going to the customers, I was thinking about new opportunities in the market, I was putting a LinkedIn post online and producing the graphic myself. And then you have to think about the plan for next year as well. Yeah, so these are all the roles combined. If you look at the role today, it's actually much more limited. So I don't do administration anymore, of course, and I hate it. So that's very good, because I'm also very bad at it. I hate it. I'm very limited. My marketing activities have limited. I'm just contributing strategically still a bit. I'm still quite active at the sales end because they still need me. It's hard to zoom out too fast at commercial aspects. I'm going very, very hard on business development still. So this means developing new services, selling something to a customer that nobody has sold before. That's the difference between sales and business development. Don't underestimate the level, the difference of skills and complexity. And now I'm also making more my CEO role through. Yeah. So yeah, what does it mean here? It's to really, yeah. In my case, it means a bit being the face of the company, but also we want to make other people the face of the business. But it works right like that. So I'm putting a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. And of course, you have to keep everybody motivated and define the values. What do you stand for? Where do we want to go? What are we about? So that's really a core job you have as a CEO to make sure that happens.
Thank you for sharing that. So I have actually many questions for you, but I want to give the floor to our audience. Please don't hesitate to write your questions on chat box or just switch on your camera and ask your questions. I guess, Kajol, you have a question to ask?
Yeah, thank you, Kim. Wim, yes, your splendid profile and your encouragement for our young author professionals. By the way, I did my PhD from Netherlands, TU Delft, and now I'm in Toronto, and did my master's MPhil from Stockholm, Sweden. So I was just wondering, as a new company, you know from the bottom to everything about the company, what type of things are required. As a water professionals or for the newcomer, what type of qualities they should have and what type of challenges they are facing once you're opening your business or going to the job market, and how these young professionals can tackle or to learn from the superior or someone to cope that, fulfill that gap and go into the job market, or maybe entrepreneur like you.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I understand correctly, your question has two parts. Huh? So on the business side, so if you start your own business and you go to the market with a new business, or regardless, if you go for a job, not your own business, but you are, let's say, an entrepreneur in another business, what are the challenges then, right?
Yeah, and also if I look as a graduate, if I want to look for a job in the water industry, what type of skills that I should focus to get into the market?
Yeah. That's okay. Well, let's start with the business. I think if you are an academic profile, like most of us here, I think you have a lot of knowledge and you want to put that inside a business. It likely means that your business will be quite innovative because you have built certain knowledge. It will most likely be quite innovative. So you will start changing things. Similar, if you have finished your PhD or your master's, and as a young professional, you enter the markets, you see a lot of things that have to change according to you. I think the biggest skill you will need is to make that change happen, and not get disappointed by how slow you can have that change happening. For example, if you look at our business, we are going to sell new models, new approaches, things people have never done. I mean, there is a reason why there are not many businesses like our business. There is a reason. There's a big pro, which means there's a lack of competition. But don't forget, there's a big con as well. There are many things you have to explore yourself because you have no reference. Your customers also have no reference. So how can they judge you're expensive or not? It's all a problem. So the thing is, I think regardless of what you do, building your own business or building your own career, I think you will have to be able to, in one or the other way, to build a lot of human skills. I think if you are able to do that, not everybody is equally good at it, but if you have some capacities to read humans and to handle people, I think that's a core property, because knowledge we all have PhDs and we are overqualified. Actually, the trick is in how do you simplify what you know and bring it to let people understand it. So I think putting yourself in the other one's shoes, I think that's the number one core property. I think it's even more important than building more knowledge or when it comes to really making change. It's all about change, I think. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. I have many things here, many sub bullets, but I think
that was a great suggestion for young water professionals. I think. Thank you for your answer.
Just one more point regarding this point. As a CEO or the director of the company, once you're looking for a fresh graduate or something, mostly what type of their skills you look for? That I think that will most important for us, like young water professionals here.
Yeah. Probably it will depend on the nature of the business, what you are looking for, and how strong their culture is. But actually, if you're starting or a young business and you want to attract talent, you have no other choice than to have a strong culture, I think. So if you have a strong culture, if you're a business with a strong culture, you immediately look for people that fit that culture. So I think the number one thing we screen for is there a cultural and personality fit? If that is a yes, then we will look at the technical skills. So I think in our case, it is writing an application letter that is a bit personal, maybe. It's having a job interview where you really show yourself, just admit what you don't know, don't brag about what you know. I mean, just be yourself in the natural way. For us, that matters a lot. For us, that matters a lot. I think there is a solid foundation if you have that to build any expertise further.
Great, thank you for your answers, Wim. I would like to give the word to Amar. Amar, you can ask your question.
Thank you very much, Gamza. Thank you very much, Wim. Nice to finally meet you after a small communication on LinkedIn. So my question is actually about the technical aspect of the process modeling. So what do you think would, like if someone wants to become a process modeler, do you think what type of skills that he needs to gain? So it's improving statistical analyses or gaining more experience in the process itself? practical experience, learning how to code, or by any means get a PhD even if it's necessary? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a multidimensional answer, I think, because modeling is very broad. It's very wide. You have people only doing data, data cleaning, data algorithms. You have people doing process modeling. I mean, there are so many sub-disciplines. Nobody masters all of them. But for example, when it comes to us, we are a process modeling company. The process knowledge is very important. I strongly believe that you are a way better modeler if you really understand the process. So you really cannot model an activated sludge tank or another process if you really have not seen it with your own eyes, I think. So I think for being a good modeler, I think regardless of which subdomain you are, having the process understanding and talking with the people on the floor to hear their needs, because that's in the end what your model will deliver. The answers to their needs, I think that's primary importance. And then of course you have to ask yourself, what am I best at? Am I good at coding, or am I not a good coder? It doesn't mean if you're not so good at coding that you are a bad modeler. Maybe you have a very good talent of transforming what you see in a mathematical equation. It's a different skill than coding that mathematical equation and making it work. So it depends. If it can be on the data side, probably on the model building side, on the model application side, because applying a model is very different than building a model. It's different people, again, with different skills. So I think it's very broad, and probably you have to start from your strengths, I guess.
So would you think would you think a PhD is necessary in this field?
Well, I don't think so, personally. It can be of added value if it's really specialized, and if you are building a huge competitive advantage with that on the job market or so. For example, in my case, it was definitely of added value. Yes, I had 4 years to just do that. So you have a very solid understanding then. But I don't think it's a necessity. It's the interest and affinity, I think.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So the next question will be from KG back, I guess.
Yeah. So how have you deployed custom CFD models profitably and reliably? It seems like CFDs deployed a lot in like products, and so they're iterating, they're reducing their lifecycle design times, and then they can go to market sooner with a product. But it sounds like what you're describing in a consulting environment, you're doing customized CFD every time. So how have you found a way to be profitable in that? Because the cloud computing, like it adds up quickly on Reynolds number and all of those.
So I think one of the major benefits of our business is that we are so focused that you build a solid experience. I think that you build expertise and experience. These two together make you do things very well and make you do things fast and efficiently. I think that's core, building that expertise and experience. If you do that part-time, it's very hard, I think. If you do it full-time with a whole team, with a growing team, with people that stay there, hopefully for very long, I think that can work out. So the thing is, we try to try to repeat our activities as much as we can with the existing models while developing new models we then deploy. So we try to not develop models for one-time use, but we try to build generic knowledge we can reapply. If you look at computational power, I think it's a matter of smartly setting up your model in the practical way. So what exactly do you need? Can you simplify things? And then of course we have cloud computing and hardware, in-house hardware and cloud computing as well. And actually, I must say we have never hit the limits because computing power nowadays is quite handsome. But it comes with the right model selection based on experience, I think. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Wim. I want to change the direction of the chat a bit. So at the beginning of the session, you mentioned about your personal life, your family. And we also know that you're a CEO and you have many responsibilities, especially in a growing company. So I'm wondering how easy to manage this, the balance between your work life and personal life? How you do that?
Yeah, it's very difficult. Huh? So it's not impossible, but it's very difficult. It's a continuous balancing act. That's for sure. Because yeah, I mean, we decided to grow this business. If you don't want to grow as a business, it's a different story, I think. And the challenge is different. You just do whatever you do, and you just do it for the coming years. But if you want to really grow your business quite fast, for example, we have that ambition. Yeah, it's such a difficult exercise. So this means we all have 24 hours on a day. Yeah? That's a physical law, right? I mean, nobody can change that. If you have a family and you have a business and you have friends and you have hobbies, yeah, some time has to go from that 24 hours to each of these activities, right? So if you have a very busy job and your family is also extremely demanding in the positive sense, I mean, you have no other choice than to cut a lot of other activities. So the thing is, I don't have very sophisticated hobbies. I don't watch any television, maybe on a Friday evening when I want to decompress a bit, like a movie or so. So cutting time-consuming activities and limiting, talking with my friends and meeting there. I don't go on weekends with my friends, for example. I would like to, but it's impossible because the negative consequences as being a father will be negative. So you really have to make difficult choices. I see my friends way less than in the past. I watch less television. My hobbies are less sophisticated, and that's a way how I can balance it now. Cutting, yeah, but it's very personal. I don't say I have the truth. It's just for me it works, and maybe for another person it will look differently. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine how difficult it is when you are working for your own company, for your own business, and trying to grow your business as well next to your personal life.
Yeah.
So there is another question from Rohit. Would you like to ask your question, or you want me to read it from the chat box?
I can ask my question. Am I audible?
Yeah, sure. Please go.
Yeah, so I have two questions for you, Dr. Audenaert. My first question is, do you apply first principle modeling such as DFT and MD and apply them in your business?
Can you explain what DFT is and MD, please?
So like molecular dynamics and those kind of like simulations, the first principle simulations, do you apply those in your business?
No, not yet. I'm always saying not yet because I don't want to exclude anything from from the future. But no, it's CFD, computational fluid dynamics. I mean, we don't go too much fundamental right now.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And my second question is, you mentioned in the beginning that you did physical and chemical treatment research in your master's, and you did more of biological treatment studies in your PhD. How do you think your career would have shaped up if this was the other way around?
If it were,
so let's say if you did, so let's say if you did biological treatment-based research in your master's and you did physical and chemical treatment-based research in your PhD.
Yeah. Well, I think in my case, it wouldn't have to turn out quite differently. Of course, I can never know, but I think so. Why? Because I'm interested in many things. I'm more of a generic person rather than a specialist. Of course, if you do a PhD, you specialize in certain things, but I think I would have discovered always both biological and physical chemical. I also loved working both in drinking water and wastewater. I never felt I was a wastewater engineer or a drinking water engineer, but I loved studying the differences. I call them the DOC world and the COD world. And not many people talk the same language, drinking water and wastewater. So I loved all these things. So I don't think that would have made a difference for me. I would have explored them anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a very different perspective because, for example, I deal with industrial wastewater treatment. So I deal solely with industrial wastewater treatment. I have no idea about drinking water treatment except for the basic understanding, but our research does not touch that at all. So it's nice to know that you have a holistic perspective.
Yeah, I love combining them, and now they are nicely coming together with the whole trend on water use. So I love studying that bridge, how things are moving now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Rohit. So I have another question. I'm wondering, did you have any mentors during your career? Do you find it useful? Do you recommend to have mentors to young water professionals?
Yeah, I would think I would recommend it, definitely. Yes, and I have a lot of mentors, but I think how they look like and in which way you use them or interact with them is very personal.
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, many of my mentors are just famous entrepreneurs. Yeah, for example, I would just name a few. Elon Musk, Edison, Benjamin Franklin, Charles Munger, Ray Dalio, Gary Vaynerchuk. Many of them are Americans. Yeah, I don't know why, but these are some of my famous mentors. I mean, I watch stuff from them online. I watch movies. I read biographies of them. I read books. So this is for me a lot of mentoring because a lot of information is out there, a lot of wisdom of these guys, of these people. Then, of course, I also have mentors in my own family. I have a couple of people that are building businesses themselves, and I go to them and talk to them in person regularly to exchange things. And then I also have a couple of water heroes, people in the water industry that not only have a big vision, but also make that vision happen.
Mm-hmm.
So many people have people with big visions. I admire them. Then you have people making things happening, but people having big visions and making things happening are quite scarce. But you have a few of them, and I really have some heroes there. And so when I meet them at conferences and events, I really go to talk to them. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Great.
So yeah. But yeah, so it can be a mentor online or in a book, or it can be in-person mentors. But yeah, definitely it helps. I think it can accelerate a lot. Just talking, for example, me having this session already triggers new ideas in my mind. So it just helps.
Yeah, great. Yeah, to my opinion as well, like it doesn't have to be someone that you inspired, but it can also be just a friend that can give you another vision, new direction. So
Exactly. For example, one mentor is my co-founder, Usman. He's from Pakistan. He has a certain background. He has a certain look on life that is quite different than my look. I learned so much. I learned so much from the person. I became a happier person just working with that person. So yes, it's a mentor. Huh?
Yeah, completely agree. So Nitish, you have a question, I guess?
Yeah, thank you so much for the kind of a holistic view of how you have come from a research side to an entrepreneur. I was kind of wondering, like, when we think about, like, when I talk to people who are really into building an entrepreneurship, they're always fearful about facts that a lot of entrepreneurships fail. And also there is that famous term called the valley of death. So when you have that demonstration phase and the commercialization phase, like, what do you think the water technologies are heading in that particular, like, generic scenario?
What they are hitting?
How difficult it is for the water industries to cope up with that valley of death scenario.
Yeah. I think the water industry is not an easy industry to build a business in. I don't want to demotivate people, but I think it's not an easy one. But of course, I see it as an opportunity as well, because if you succeed, you can do a lot of things, because it's difficult, you already have a less competition. Now, I think it's very different from depending on which type of business it is. For example, we started as a service business, and we are now evolving more towards a solutions/software business, if you call it that way. It might be different than if you were deploying a new membrane, the next level membrane, or the next level bioreactor or so. I think it will be very different, because if you look at the hardware, this new reactor, this new membrane, you might need 10 to 15 years to get there. If you look at a business like ours, I think you can be viable after a few years. So it can be different. But yeah, also we faced it. Definitely the value of that exists. I think your first customers, if you come with an innovative solution, will be the innovators and the early adopters. So the people willing to embrace these new things, willing to take the risks with you. I'm always saying with you, because just imagine you have started your business, you started tomorrow. If you started tomorrow, you have no customers. But your customer might ask, what is your experience? Who are your customers? Nobody. And so how do you start selling? Is it chicken and the egg? I mean, how do you start selling? So you need these initial customers that are willing to take the risk with you. I believe in you. You will make it happen, right? And if it succeeds, we have a very nice project. We can go presenting at a conference and we can say we did it. So these types of customers you need. And then, of course, you should not forget, indeed, to make the transition to the majority. You have to really, because the thing is, unfortunately, they are very scarce. It's only 3 to 5% of the customers. So if you want to scale your business, you will need the others as well. So that's the tricky part. And I think in the water industry, it's all about demonstration. Showing a lot of customers, showing a lot of the results you have done, demonstration, and then you can convince the second part. So you have to start, so what I think is that you have to create something out of nothing, very rapidly. So something out of nothing to get that first innovator. You do a little tiny project together, you blow it up the result tremendously, you communicate about that again. Maybe you have 2 other slightly bigger projects. You communicate about them again, you blow it up. And that's, I think, how you can reach the masses, I think. Mm-hmm. But of course, it's easily said, it's not easily done.
Yeah, it sounds quite challenging. I also personally think that, especially in modeling sector, it's really not easy to convince the clients to convince them that they want you to demonstrate what you have done so far. Like, what was the optimization that you did in this plan? And you cannot come up with this experience very easily. So personally, I also find it very difficult. Challenging.
Thank you so much. I have like a small follow-up. Like, when you're growing, like at the very early phase of your startup development, like, do you guys go to conferences with your technologies or your solutions, like pitch your solutions in like leading water conferences and stuff, so that people know what you're up to?
Yeah, for our business, that was of major importance, yes. And with that, I can also say that COVID had a massive impact on our business, because we were relying heavily on conferences. Yeah, we present new projects, we present with customers, we showcase that. And if in the audience, half of them are potential customers, yeah, of course, it has an impact. So yes, very, very important. Very important for a business like ours.
Good to know, thanks.
Yeah.
So I can get the final questions, maybe. We are limited in time. Karen, you can ask your question if you would like.
Sure, thank you, Gamze, and thank you, Dr. Wim, for this very interesting chat. I find it very motivational. I'm just wondering, when you start from zero your company, how do you build up a team? How do you ask people to join you and to start working with you?
Yeah, great question, Karen. Yeah, I think it's very similar than getting the first customers. You have to find these people that are willing to take the risk with you, because the first people in your business, I mean, you're nothing. You have no systems. You don't have a structure in your files. You have no HR policy. You don't know what your values are. They are not written down. So yeah, I think personally how we did it is we had these people on our radar. So we reached out to them. I think that's the best way to do it. You have like a gut feeling that this one person might be the best candidate. If you reach out to that person, like, there's a high likelihood the person will join. So what I think is that you don't have any systems, you are not a corporate, you don't have any structures, but what you have is your vision and your belief in your own business. And that is sufficient to convince the early colleagues, I think. But not sufficient to convince everybody, but the early ones, yes. And when they join, yeah, other people will join because yeah, other people already have de-risked the business, and yeah. So that is how we did it. We approach people ourselves. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you so much.
So yeah, we are almost at the end of our session. So I would like to ask one last question to you, Wim. So I'm wondering, what was the best career advice you received? And also, finally, what are your final tips and suggestions for young water professionals?
Yeah, well, the best career advice I ever received is read more books. Yeah, for me personally, yeah, read more books. Read the hell out of your brain. I don't know, as much as you can, because that changed my life. I read, I mean, the last 5 years, I think I've read 250 nonfiction books or so. And then you can also ask the question, how do you do that? You have a family, you have a business. Well, it's a matter of, yeah, just doing it. I don't know. But I'm not saying you have to read it. You also can watch YouTube movies or watch or listen an audiobook. Again, it's purely personal. But I think the best advice I ever got is take in a massive amount of information. Not from news sources, but the real stuff. The best books, the best sources out there across different disciplines. So I'm reading a lot in psychology, finance, nature, science, biographies, history, all of these, the whole mixture. You don't exclude any. So the best advice I ever got is go heavy on multidisciplinary reading. That was the best advice I got, because it had and still has a massive impact. You have, yeah, it has a huge impact. So, but I think I convinced you enough about that. Second, I think the best of the advice I would give to young professionals, I think it's also an advice I got from reading the book from Ray Dalio, Principles. Understand that people are wired very differently. I think that's such a solid advice. The spectrum of characteristics of people is so immense. So if you just assume that everybody is like you will hit so many walls and you will get disappointed so much, and you will not see the opportunities in the other people. So I think that's it comes back to where we started this talk. I think how you can change things. I think if you understand that people are very different. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much. So before we close the session, I would like to ask everyone to turn on your cameras, if possible. I would like to take a group picture before we close the session. Nice to see you guys.
Yeah, nice to see everybody.
Okay, so I will take a screenshot. Yeah, I still wait for people. 1, 2, 3. Perfect, thank you. So thank you, Wim. It was very inspiring, very insightful conversation. It was so nice to see you here today joining us. We really appreciate it. And yeah, we wish you good luck with growing your company and team. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much. The pleasure is mine now. So yeah, any one of you, if you would have any questions or you would like to have a chat, reach out, and we can definitely talk.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining, and I wish you a good afternoon and see you later.
Bye everyone.
Bye. Take care.
Bye bye everyone.